Kia ora everybody, welcome back to Creative Curiosity. This is a podcast and this is episode 2 of Know Your Numbers. Special guest here, got my brother Retimana here who lives over in Perth. He's from Wellington. If you've been following my journey on Instagram, you may recognize him from his episode of my Muku journey. And there's the sleeve on his arm there. But brother, how are you? Give us a little bit of an intro to who you are and what your story is, brother.
Yeah, firstly, kia ora, bro. Thanks for having me on. Firstly, it's awesome. It's, like I said to you, we sort of touched base a couple of weeks ago and I was more than happy to sort of jump on and have a chat. But yeah, like you mentioned, grew up back home in Wellington to about the age of 18, moved out of home or moved countries, should I say, spent a bit of time in Perth, and then I ended up back home there for a bit, about a year and a half, and then I was based in Melbourne for about 4 years, and then I've made my way back over to the west side of Australia. I've been here for the last, say, 5 years now, so all up probably close, pushing about 10 to 11 years in Australia. But yeah, sort of grew up in sort of as a kid, quite a tight-knit whānau, got quite a big extended whānau as well. Went to kura kaupapa, kohanga, all that sort of stuff. So grew up around Te Ao Māori for the majority of my life, or especially the early stages of my life, should I say. And then before I went off to high school, which was sort of, an English speaking school, which sort of tested my limits a bit in terms of like, obviously, learning. We'll put it this way, I didn't learn how to read and write in English till I was about 12. So going to high school then was it was a big shift and a big change. But in some ways, I'm very grateful for my upbringing in terms of, one, being brought up around that side of my culture as well. So my father's Māori, my mother's Pākehā, and my mum was very big and heavily influenced us around that side of our culture as well. So she got right on into that as well. And that's it really. And then I've sort of always been involved in sort of the fitness industry from a PT at a young age. Sort of always knew I wanted to be involved around exercise and stuff because I used to like playing a lot of sport. And I knew, if that wasn't an avenue that I could potentially pursue professionally, it was how can I still sort of keep around or be around, evolved around that sort of arena, I guess, in some sort of professional way. And I guess personal training was sort of the first stepping stone into that. So I sort of, I was, sometimes kids sort of leave school and they're sort of a bit unsure of what to do. They jump into something just for the sake of for doing something. I sort of just knew, bang, do my study, do all that sort of stuff. And I wouldn't lie, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't probably the greatest in terms of having my attention span to study, but if I wanted to apply myself to something and do something, I'm pretty stubborn, and driven to be able to do that, if that makes sense. And so now since being in Perth, I've had a few other businesses that I've slowly stepped away from or sold up on, and then I've just started a new business as of a year and a half ago, a gym called S30, which is here in Perth, which is the first of it. And we're in the process phase of sort of slowly franchising these out, which we've got a couple that have already pretty much signed and done. It's just getting a few other little things over the line, and then hopefully we can start spacing that all out and get that going. And that's sort of it really in a nutshell. I mean, I probably guess we'll talk a little bit more about it as we go along, but that's it really.
All right, bro. So whānau listening, so the bro has been over here for 2 sessions. The first time I met him was 2018, like 2 days before Christmas, and he was here. And during the session, it was a 2-day session, 3/4 sleeve. I remember you were on the phone sorting out your fella's Christmas do. You got off the plane in Auckland, jumped on another one to Whakatane, came here, did our 2 sessions. Your mum flew up from Wellington,
Wellington,
A little catch up, and then I remember that whole time I was just like, what the hell does this fella do? He's always on the phone, like organizing this Christmas do. You're like, what's that, 10 hours away. And like, I remember from then, bro, just being impressed by your work ethic, and obviously you care about, what you do. And I could tell you care about your workers as well, just from the way you were talking on the phone and the way you were talking about your fella's setup. But in terms of your setup, bro, like S30, tell us about it. Tell us about S30. I remember you told me about it and I was like, far out, this is mind blowing.
Yeah, cool. So, well, sort of how it really started is ideally, like I mentioned today, when I started off as a PT, and then when you start off as a PT, there's sort of two ways you can go about it. You can either go down the route of basically becoming a sole trader, or that's what we call it here in Australia. So basically having your own ABN, so Australian business number. Yeah, so exactly what you are. So you work for, like an Uber driver, you work for yourself, you get paid for the hours you work, pay your own tax, all that sort of stuff. So that's one option, which can be quite daunting to go into, but the long-term benefits, if you can stick in the game, you know, outweighs sort of working for someone and someone taking half your pay cut to then in turn for you to pay it yourself, if that makes sense. So, so sort of jumped down that route in terms of working for myself. And I was, you know, an 18-year-old kid doing that, which is, I learned a lot. I mean, I was sort of grateful in some ways. My parents have always been involved around business and stuff as well. So I had a little bit of an inkling around that. And my father, he's a qualified accountant. So he sort of could help me a little bit around that sort of stuff. But still, even to this day, I still don't really have my whole head screwed around it. Like I've got other people in place to help me out and help us out, should I say, as a company with that sort of stuff. So yeah, I was PTing, sort of, you know, got to the point where, and normally, like, I don't know if this was the case with everyone, but most people I talk to is when you start PTing, you know, your ultimate goal is to own a gym or have your own space or, you know, your own sort of brand. That's always the, you know, the stepping stone to get to that point. So I always knew that that was something I wanted to do. And then we sort of, so got out of that, jumped into a few other gym businesses that we had. And I was just sort of a minority shareholder in those sort of businesses as well. But they sort of, you know, they worked well. And I learned a lot from that as well, because that went from, you know, looking after myself as a sole trader to then, you know, opening up a bigger business, or sort of say like a company, and then having multiple staff under me and having to learn how to deal with that. And
did that feel,
you know,
huge, bro, that shift?
It was, to start with, because it was like, you've got to realize there's a bunch of different personalities coming through, there's different strengths and all that sort of stuff, and it's how to manage that and somewhat. And I'm I guess from like, you in the PT world, you've got some people that are, you know, very talented and very skillful, and they always upskill themselves and spend a lot of money on education and all that sort of stuff. But it doesn't necessarily mean you're able to sort of get along or train a client, because they might just upskill themselves so much to the point where they're so technical they couldn't really hold a conversation or get to know someone, if that makes sense. Because as a PT, man, like your customer service and everything, I believe, like, you know, whether you're working behind the bar, whether you're a PT, whether you're a lawyer having a client, you still got to provide customer service. But in our scenario, I mean, you've got people from all walks of life that different goals, different challenges and stuff. And, you know, if you can't sort of get along with people or have some people skills, it's quite hard to sort of make it into the industry as well. So, so going back to your question, it was a big shift, man, because like, I felt like playing sport and stuff before, and especially in team sports, you sort of have that camaraderie and you're able to sort of work with that. But then, you know, you got a bunch of things that pop up, like you don't sort of, and you're working with them on a day-to-day basis, and you sort of considerate about how people, you know, get, you know, not pay, but like making sure that they're paid on time and all that sort of stuff. And, you know, you're not just worrying about yourself, you've got to worry about other people's livelihood as well. So it was a big shift, and I did learn a lot. And I probably was really bad early on at really delegating work, if that makes sense. I would be like, nah, I'll sort it out, I'll take it. Like, you know, I sort of took that role on of being like, nah, I'll be the leader here and I'll help you guys, you know, I will do everything. And then sort of, but what happened to me is I probably burnt myself out, to be honest.
Yeah, of course, I imagine so.
I got to, and so I got a little bit, I had a chat to one of my friends he's still a business partner with me in this current business. And he sort of just helped me out with like just how to delegate and break up my day properly to, you know, make things, say it like it was to-do list, for example, things to do, what's urgent and what's a priority, and work your way backwards, if that makes sense.
Because reverse engineering.
Otherwise I could get so flustered and so busy with just trying to do all these little things. Say like I'll just respond to emails that aren't really that important, for example, where I could delegate that elsewhere, instead of focusing on the main things to then help move the money needle in the right direction, if that makes sense. So I could be there sitting there being like, man, I've had such a busy day. But actually, what have I done?
Not busy in the right areas,
well, not busy to help the business grow in the right area as well. So that was a massive shift, and I did learn a lot about it. And I learned a lot about myself as well in terms of how to deal with people and manage people. And I think I got to the end. And what I started to realize is that I would rather have a team that work really well together and have each other's backs than have a team that have you know, superstars in their area in terms of training people, but don't function well, or don't sort of have a bond or a friendship or a relationship with our members or our
Yeah, of
clients that come
course.
in the door. And when you start to realize that and build that sort of team, it builds such a big community and around your actual current gym that it sort of starts to look after itself as well. And people become, creatures of habit. They're so used to having you around or this person around, and it starts to just become quite a strong, tight-knit community, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then so to start off, PT. Sorry, I'm a bit all over the show at the moment, but
No, all good, bro.
going into that, and then that business, and we sort of what I was still doing at the time, because I was doing group training then as well as I had like my private PT stuff on the side. And what I was finding is that a lot of people would come over and do the group, like they would pay my service for the group training stuff, but then they'll come over and want to do 2 PT sessions a week, right? And save $60 for half an hour. And so it's, they're paying $120 of just PT plus another $60 $70 doing group training Monday to Saturday as well, that they would love. And they've mentioned to me a few times, a lot of people was like, I would love to train with you every single day, but I can't afford $60 every single day. So I was like, okay, cool. There might be a little bit of a hole in the market here. So then me and my good friend of mine, Luke, we sort of got together and sort of had this idea of like, is there a space in this market where like you could sort of do group personal training on a bigger scale, and why has no one sort of done it? We sat in this office of ours for a while and sort of draw up a few plans, and things have changed. Things have changed a lot since that night, and I still remember it vaguely to this night. So I remember sitting there having a beer. It was a Friday night, and we probably worked till about 2 a.m. in the morning, drawing up stuff, writing stuff, taking photos, wiping it all down, all the rest. And then we're like, no one could figure out the floor plate, or no one could figure out how to move the people around the room. So then we went into our gym that we had at that time, and did a little trial run the next day. We're like, shucks, it's quite a tough workout. Okay, what could we tweak and change? And we sort of played around for things for a while. Then we sort of sat on this idea for, I'd say, about a year and a half. Like my friend Luke went and started off a tech company as well. I was still doing my PT stuff. We still had, interest in these other businesses at the time here in Perth and some in Singapore as well. And then what happened was we basically slowly got out of those. He sort of finished up with his tech company, got out of that, and we went back to New Zealand actually, and we were in Wellington, and his mother actually lives in the Wairarapa. Yep. And we went for a hike up this mountain, just thinking, I
remember this story.
We'll be fine. Not fine. We're just not prepared at all. We went and got like a few backpacks from the Wairarapa, some chocolate and stuff, and that morning we're driving to the hill. I think it's called Mount Holdsworth, I think it's called. And I remember talking to my koro a few days ago, and he just said, be a bit careful. He heard us. Well, he knew of some runners that used to run up there, and sometimes the weather can change quite quickly. And as they were running down, they died of hypothermia. And we're like, no, we'll be fine. We're fit. We're young. My mum rings me as we're driving there. She's like, the weather forecast looks pretty bad. I'm like, we'll be sweet. Rah. Anyway, we get into this hike. We're walking up. It starts pissing down with rain. I was like, fuck, we're cold, man. We're freezing. My shoes are wet. I couldn't feel my toes.
When was it in the year? Like what season?
It was May.
Oh, so it was getting cold.
It was getting cold, bro. I was back. And see, like I left Perth the week beforehand and I was still swimming. It's still 28 degrees. And then I was in New Zealand the week later and it was freezing. And we were up in this mountain. We finally got to the top. As we started getting higher and higher, there was snow. And I'm wearing like sneakers, not proper hiking boots or anything. Couldn't feel my toes. We get up top. This cabin's freezing. There's no one in there. So we try and start the fire, get the kindling going and all that sort of stuff. Couldn't get it going. Could get it going for a little bit. And I was sort of losing my mind, but I was taking off my clothes, like trying to chuck it over the fire to get them warm and stuff. We're cooking food to try and like heat ourselves up. And it sort of got to that point where we looked at each other and we're like, okay, it's 3:30 in the afternoon. The sun's going to go down about 5, maybe if we're lucky. We need to make a decision. Are we going to stay here? Not to mention that our sleeping bags were soaking as well because our bags that we had were not proper hiking bags. We're just these two Māori kids that have come back home just thinking, we'll be sweet, we'll be all right.
We're all good.
And then we're all good. And then we started walking down. We're like, okay, we're going to make this decision now. We'll leave. Okay, so we leave. We start walking. We started moving quite quickly. We started to feel, our blood flow come back, start to feel our toes. And then we started talking about the gym, of what we had spoken about a year and a half ago, like because we had already done the structure of how the training would work.
Yeah.
We just didn't think, then we started talking about, maybe we should be a little bit different, like do an underground nightclub setting, have music that's dedicated to each class, to the BPMs on the DJ tracks that like pick up as the session goes along. dark setting, rah. We started talking about, you know, how we do things with our music and all this sort of stuff. And we just started talking about it as we were walking down the mountain. And then the light went. We walked in the dark for about 20 minutes, but I only had my torch on my phone. So he had his hand on the back of my shoulder while I was looking in front of me, because we could only see about a meter in front of us. Then my battery was only on about 10%, and it went. And then we almost walked off into the river at one stage. And then anyway, managed to get down to the car, got to the car, a big storm came, and then we couldn't start it was one of those
movies
stories where like couldn't start the car. Finally got the car started, petrol light was on. We had about a 45-minute drive back, managed to get to a gas station, and that's sort of how that started. And then we got back to Perth, stumbled across the city. We found this space, which I'm currently in at the moment. This is our gym here at the moment. This is just the backdrop of the desk, but and we liked it. We're like, man, this suits us. It's an underground basement. It used to be an old comic book store back in the day, and no one had touched it for about 4 or 5 years. Did a little bit of inquiring, realized that the rent for it was really cheap, but the only thing we didn't like was that it wasn't street value. It wasn't on the street. You sort of had to walk in a little passage and then downstairs.
Yep.
And my partner, she's an interior designer and interior stylist as well. So she's like, nah, you could just change the whole walkway entrance. I don't know if you've seen our stuff on Instagram, but
yeah.
If you do, you sort of walk in and it's sort of posted wall up, because we're very hip hop inspired, if that makes sense, because it's a nightclub sort of setting. And there's like poster walls there. And she's sort of just like, you can do this. People can take photos up here, all this sort of stuff. And then we're like, sick. And then she's like, if you think about it, it's like a nightclub. You're walking in and then down into a basement.
A lot of nightclubs, you walk down a little alleyway to go down.
Yeah, or what? Yeah. And so we're like, shit. And then she whipped up a quick design on like CAD or something like that, some sort of design profile thing. And then it sort of just started happening, and we sort of, you know, pitched it to our old business partners at the time, and they weren't interested at the time. They had a lot of other things going on. So then we pitched it to a few other people, and they seemed keen, and they never got back to us. And then basically got in touch. Luke moved up to Bali for 6 months just to build the back end of it, and I stayed here in Perth. And then he bumped into another guy who was a friend of ours. Well, he's a really good friend of ours now and business partner. His name's Oscar. And he was driving on a scooter actually, and he sort of just seen him on the side of the road. He did a full loop around and just started talking to him. He was like, mate, are you from Perth? I've seen you before. And he's like, yeah. And we just so happened to have a lot of mutual friends, if that makes sense. Started talking away. They started hanging out a bit. What are you doing up here? You know, rah. And he had gone up there for his own stuff, his own personal stuff, just got rid of his business as well. And then Luke sort of we didn't hear back from these other friends of ours. So he just sort of sent him what we're doing, the pitch deck of how we're sort of looking at doing everything. And he just, 2 days later, he just said, yep, I'm in. And then that was it. And then us three got together. And then another friend of ours was in Bali at the time with his partner. And they were sort of talking to us, talking to Luke. And then it sort of just, they jumped in on board. And then, we opened doors on the 16th of February, 2019. And it just hit the ground running, because we were criticized a lot before we opened. People were like, no one's going to want to train in the dark. No one's going to want that sort of style of training. And right, because we're very unique in terms of like, we always have 3 trainers in class, whereas a lot of group training only has 1.
Yeah,
but because
that's
we're
true,
more, we have 10 people, 30 people in a class, 1 trainer to 10 people per section of the room. Yeah. So it's very, very personal in that sort of way. And you always work with a partner. So technically it's 1 trainer per 5 people. Because the partner rests while the other partner trains. It's no different to going to the gym. Like if me and you go to the gym on a Monday, we might jump on the bench press, do some stuff.
Yeah, a partner
working on.
Not both doing it at the same time. Yeah.
And we were criticized a lot for that sort of stuff, but we managed to, in the space of two weeks, we were fully capped. So originally it was only going to be 18 people per class, 6 people per section of the room. So 3 people per trainer, technically. Yeah. After 2 weeks, we had to move to 24. After 5 weeks, we had to move to 30. And after 5 weeks, we broke even after open business. But it's just something I've never seen in my experience in this line of work for a long time, or never actually ever seen. And it's sort of, it was really, really good. And just the year just moved so quickly, because things we had anticipated to be in, say, for example, like this year, was happening 6 weeks into the opening. So it was a really, really good problem to have. But it was a lot of just almost just learning on the go, if that makes sense, and just doing things. And like we've got, we sort of thought outside the box a bit with a few other things. Like we've got our own pattern scent. So like one thing that we sort of Luke did a bit of research in is that like a lot of stores, say like Zara here in Australia or like David Jones, for example, might have their own pattern scent that have been made, and it's only so that the pattern scent that we have is individual to us. No one else can buy it, basically. And that's our smell in the gym, but what it makes the gym smell quite nice. And what you notice when you go to a lot of gyms always smell sweaty and stink and hot and all that.
They all smell the same, that's for sure.
They all smell the same, yeah. So this scent blasts down here and it goes down. People can smell it down the street, and and what the research we found is that if a place smells quite nice, is generally you're likely or inclined to spend 15 to 20 more minutes inside that shop more, and also recommend it to people based off the smell. Like, it smells quite nice down there as well. Like, I don't know how true that is, but that's sort of some stuff. But we've been commented on it a lot, and people have been like, where do you get it from? Like, we've got it designed for ourselves and had to do a bit of work in terms of making it.
This is custom.
And it costs us a couple $100 a month, but like, and it pays its way back in dividends, but it pays really well. It works off, should I say. And then it's just, that's how that sort of started, man. And then it's just been go. And then we're sort of in the process now of franchising these out, because we've got a lot of interest around. We've pretty much ticked off 2. Could have another 2 signed off soon as well.
Are they in Perth as well or elsewhere?
These ones are. We were like, originally there were some talks about Brisbane and Sydney. And we just sort of thought, for the time being, it would be a lot easier having something here, where that, like, if something went down or didn't work, that's something not, that there's a bit of an issue, we're able to drive to it instead of jumping on a plane and flying over there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just to get a bit of quality, not quality control, or I guess quality control, because
people some consistency across all your guys' franchise.
Because once there's a tink in the chain, it could sort of flip south, if that makes sense. And I guess we're just trying to build a strong team. And I mean, we've really thought it out in terms of the ways, like Luke's very good at running the back end of the numbers and stuff like that, and thinking about stuff to do. And we're both good at coming together with ideas. Like he's very good ideas, and then I would say, for example, I'll be a lot better at tweaking the ideas in terms of just adding some small things here and there. But then I really enjoy the front end of the shop. Yeah, that makes sense. So like the way we greet people when we come in, everyone gets fist pumped. They walk into the stairs. There's one trainer at the top that pulls up a curtain, because everyone waits upstairs 5 minutes before class. There's music blasting, and it basically, what it does is, on the street, is you have 30 people at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m., lunchtime, and in the evening, sitting outside, and people walk past saying, what the hell's this place? You know what I mean? Because it already starts to create people like, what the hell's going down here? So one trainer welcomes them in, fist pumps them. There's another one at another bottom stairs, and normally the lead trainer or the head trainer will be at the bottom, and they will there's a new person, show them around, run them through how the whole process sort of works, and then go from there. So it's even just little things like that. And like, before class starts, all the trainers are out talking to people, and it's just building a community and a vibe and a culture that we want people to be part of. And I will say that we're not a serious place where we're like, you've got to, lose 10%, you've got to follow this and that. We're trying to sort of change the game where it's like, we want you guys to train and have fun, and all the other stuff will start to look after itself the more and more you train. And
those are bonuses, cherry on top.
Those are bonuses. And like we run drinks. We've got drinks tonight. We just ran a 30-day challenge, and it was just 30 days of SD. It's just more or less just getting in training every day for 30 days. And then we run drinks, and sometimes we run them down in the studio because it looks like a club and a nightclub. But we've had issues with a lot of people from the public trying to come in. But yeah, and then so I like to sort of, going back to that, so I look after the front end. Luke's very good at the other back end, and then our other 2 business partners are very good at just sort of helping bringing everything together and merging it all tightness. But so the other franchises we're looking at are here in Perth, and then we've got interests over east, and potentially I would like to set one up back home in Wellington to start with. New Zealand. That'd be awesome. And I was looking at coming home over Christmas just to sort of start looking around. And I think with that, I would probably look at like potentially opening that up to some of my good friends and stuff, doing like, hey guys, like we could all do something, because a lot of my good mates all live all over the world. If say for example, myself and our group might own 20 or 30% of it, and then if you guys want to all have the remaining 70%, and it's cut up in like 5%, 10%. But it just means if you were ever to move home, there's some purpose there as well. If that makes sense.
You can still fly the same flag no matter where you are living.
Or even if you're like, you're not in that industry whatsoever. I've got a few friends who play sport professionally, and if they were to move back to Wellington or anywhere in New Zealand, and they weren't, because it can be quite hard to transition out of professional sport into business or get into a daily job or something. At least there's something there that they could potentially go into. I guess it's always forward thinking about like together as a group or as friends or as a family, we can achieve more. That makes sense, instead of being just like so about yourself the whole way down. But yeah, so that's the next step, mate. We're just looking at franchising these out and just trying to more or less make sure the branding and stuff's in line, and that's been a bit of a challenge as well. But we've been quite fortunate enough, like I said, like Luke was very good at the back end, I enjoy the front end, and we've got a PR team that helps us, which is really awesome. Like that helped, I guess, get some growth, because like when we first opened, there was Channel 9 was down here, Channel 7 we're doing interviews left, right and center, and it was sort of a bit overwhelming because we're like, gosh, like, we're just like two kids from New Wellington, like, what are we up to, sort of thing. And then, we've got a branding team, a friend of ours, she's got a branding team called, what's it called? Some Kind of Studio, which is based in Brisbane, but she's been in LA for a while now. Her partner's over there. So that what we did was we got people in place, and we got them they just stay in their lane, and they control that lane, and we control this lane. So the branding team might be like, we need this, this, and this. And we'll just be like, okay, yeah, cool. Like that's your role. Like, you guys are very good at that. Like, there's no point us trying to have a discussion about it and be like, oh, I don't know, because
that's their expertise. Yeah. And that's why you got them on. Yeah.
Correct. So, and I think a lot of that sort of helped us as well. Whereas in the past, we'd be like, maybe micromanage, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, and maybe that's just an age thing, but yeah, so that's sort of how that's all really come about. Probably jabbered on a bit too much, but
bro.
Yeah,
bro. And like, I'm trying to pick off like a few notes. One of them going back to like your PT days, and when you sort of had that first big shift, and there was delegation. How did you learn that, bro? And how is that sort of area of your skill set developed over these years?
Yeah, awesome question. So like I said, I think what I struggled with was that I was so used to looking after myself, and that when I did step into that bigger environment in terms of having people under me, and other people around me, I found it difficult because I was so used to just look after myself in that sort of way. So it took me a while to do, and I remember Luke sat me down and just helped me out a bit with that sort of stuff, like emails, or it's even little things like typing up canned responses in your Gmail, for example. So having a canned response for, say, for example, someone sends an email in for what are your prices for memberships or something like that. I had a template in my Gmail, go in, canned responses had membership options, end of trial options, terminations, all that sort of stuff. People sent stuff in, it was just click, drag. All they had to change was, hey, put their name in. And if they wanted to suspend their membership, for example, this is the dates that it's suspended from, this is the price of suspended, and it was just bang, done. Like, so little more getting processes. That's what I said. Processes. That's the biggest thing, mate. So it was getting that all sorted. And then once I got that sorted, then when we opened this place, I was able to transition a lot of that side of stuff across. So that was the biggest thing, because then once I had processes, for example, if I had staff and I'm like, guys, I need this, this, and this done. Here's a Google Drive. All the processes are in here. Bang, click, done. Everyone's got access to it. Do you know what I mean? And then the only hard thing was actually just getting it up and running. The processes, for example, like how to cancel a class, how to do this, how to do that. And so now I've actually got an assistant that helps me, Luke, and our manager out here at the studio. And she's a virtual assistant, basically, and we pay her a couple of hours every day, but she does a lot of the little things like membership inquiries, how to book in the class, all this sort of little things that like could take my time. Say, for example, people are emailing you to get time walk on that, and you're so busy doing all your filming and stuff that how good it would be for someone else to just be able to look like,
Yes.
hey guys, here's Haunui prices, rah, it's done. You don't even have to worry about it. And you might just say to them, hey, I've only got Monday the 14th free, Wednesday the 16th free at this time. And then they take it or leave it. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it was getting processes in place. And once that was in place, I got an assistant where I currently am now, got an assistant here to help us out. And she just knows everything. So now things that would take upwards of 2 to 3 hours a day of little niggly things, it frees up my whole day. It frees up those 3 hours a day to focus on other stuff to then move forward. So to probably answer your question, bro, was getting processes in place to then be able to move forward, if that makes sense. And that was the hardest thing with that was just getting it started, just typing up the processes, making sure they're all correct. And these are even little things like how to cancel a class, for example, or because we use an app called Mindbody, which is very similar to like you've been training at F45 recently.
Yeah, I've been doing
Yeah. So they normally use a Mindbody app as well. It's their own personal one. So we use the actual Mindbody app, and that's how you book in. But then when you book in, you've got to be able to see the class times, the schedule, what the description of the class is. So did a whole process of how to create the class, add the class, put the times and all that sort of stuff. So then I can be like, hey, in 3 weeks' time, I need this class at 5:20, And all I'm communicating for at the moment is just a WhatsApp group chat. With myself, Luke, our manager, and the assistant, and then the manager and the assistant, they look after it, and it's done. It's helping us now be able to grow the business in the other area instead of being bogged down. Because technically, this first gym I currently have, S30, is a franchise. It's franchise number 1. We've got another company that sits above it. So we pay franchise fees from the first studio
to that. And what's that? What's the mothership called?
It's just called the mothership. So we call it the mothership and then the flagship. So technically, if I was to sell another franchise here and here, all the royalty fees and branding fees and marketing fees all come into this, because we're lucky. We're probably grateful that we did it straight away, because then it looks like it's a franchise. It is a franchise. It is a franchise, but it's already operating like one. So then when we go to the market, we can already show them, like, you know, your P's and L's and all that sort of stuff as well. So it sort of looks like we are already operating as one. So like, say for example, you know, $2,500 for your franchise fee every month goes into the mothership, plus your branding fees, plus your royalties and all that sort of stuff as well. So then you start operating properly like a proper business, instead of being this one gym that's doing really well, but not paying any of that sort of stuff anyway.
And then having to figure that out later on.
Correctly. And technically it already comes to us anyway, but then that builds up cash flow in here to then be able to get the infrastructure and people behind us to then help go and scale out to do other franchises. So we get another website made for that franchise, and then you've got to get your trademarking done through here as well, and all your IP and all that sort of stuff. But that belongs to the mothership, if that makes sense.
Right. It sounds like, because I'm like, obviously, you know, I'm a visual person, and I always try to like visualize things to help them make a bit more sense to me. And it sounds like for you guys and for you personally, what has helped you is recognizing where you are, recognizing and figuring out where you want to go, and thinking, all right, what processes and systems do we need to create in order to have solid foundations for that next level? So when we get there, we know we can't come back, and we know that the effort and energy that we do output is contributing to moving further up, as opposed to just contributing to just staying around here. Does that sound right?
Yeah, for sure. 100%. Like I said, it's trying to get us to that next step. But how do you get there? You've got to have everything in place as well.
Figure out those systems and stuff. Fair enough.
And once
you Karen?
Sorry. Once that's done, like I said earlier, once you get it done, you're amazed at how much easier your life and your work-life balance can be.
Hell yeah.
And to be honest, you've got to not be afraid to ask for help. To be honest, again, when I was early on, it was just like, nah, don't worry. It was probably an ego thing, and me being quite stubborn and being like, nah, they're useless. They're not going to do it. I'll do it. I'll just
not going to do it as good as me.
Yeah, correct. Well, you've got to understand that, like, even with franchising, like when I first thought about the franchising stuff, I was very big on, out of our group, like, nah, I'd rather us do 50 of these around the world than 1,000, because I want the brand and everything to stay strong and stay intact. But the thing is, no one's ever going to do it as good as you when you first started it, because that's yours, you know.
You
they
just
like
have to
your
accept
idea,
that, eh? Just have to accept.
you've got to accept that, you know. And we've got a rule that sort of randomly came up when we're all in Bali catching up to go about this, called 70-30. So we're 70% serious in terms of our training and how we go about things, and we're 30% like have a bit of fun, relax. That's where that sort of, and certain for the business side, that's where that 30% comes of just like, hey, they might have it at 90, 80%. They're not going to have it at 100, or they might have it at 90, for example, but they're not going to have it at 100 or 110 where you want it. But 90 is better than having it at like 40, if that makes sense. So then you just go, so yeah, man. So that's sort of,
Bro, it reminds me of a good lesson that I learned from this business dude, JT Fox. Went up to one of his seminars with Rance, with Ranira. Him and his partner, yeah, bro, yeah. I was telling you about it, and the tickets that we bought, it allowed us to. Oh no, we didn't buy these tickets. Actually, we bought into his program, but we ended up getting like a little one-on-one time with him. And I was talking to him about, for me personally, because probably one of the biggest things that's been part of my identity is quality. You know, trying to always put out the best quality I can. And the reason I've struggled with that is when I've tried to branch out or try to get someone else on, or, you know, that delegation that we were talking about, I've struggled with it because in my mind, I thought it had to be, if it was going to represent me and, you know, not the umbrella of the Haunui art, it had to be at that 100% like we were talking about. 100%. And what he said was like, nah, like you just had to accept the fact that no one's ever going to do your thing as good as you. So just accept that and then move on. And the next step is to understand that, like you're saying, 70% is better than nothing, or 40%, like you're saying, like just getting it done. The fact that somebody is doing it. And he said also another thing that was interesting to me was me and very few other people are the people who actually care about that top 3% in terms of quality, or top 5%, 10%. And he goes, the majority of people, they just want it good enough for them, you know?
Yes.
And he goes, the people that you can get on, that you can delegate to, they can get it to that good enough level that the majority of people will appreciate. And
it's it.
And so for me, I was like, oh, wow, like that makes sense. I'm still like getting there, but I've been in like the last year or so has been really about discovering different forms of creativity and sort of really figuring out what I want to do, you know, with my life creatively. Moving on, like one of the things that I want to learn is that delegation and getting people on. How was that, bro? Was that something that came natural to you to like get business partners and you know, get employing people and that sort of stuff?
So I was quite fortunate. So I'd been grinding away in Melbourne, working at a commercial gym to start with as a PT, and I was doing some, like I said, like the hours were long, and like in that industry you only get paid for when you work. And the biggest thing about working for yourself as a sole trader, a lot of the times in those commercial gyms where you take the full cut of the client's income, is that you subcontract into the gym. So you would pay them $380, $400 a week just to work there. That's your outgoings already, without even paying your rent at home, without even buying your food, factoring all your travel, all that sort of stuff. That's what scares a lot of people off. Is because they're like, oh, I can't. And already, if you're thinking like that, you're probably not going to last too long in the industry, because the industry's sold on the fact that you can be your own boss, charge what you want, work the hours you want, which is all fair and true.
That's the dream that's being sold, man.
After about a couple of years of working your ass off, basically, because when you first get in, if I was to approach, when you first get into the gym industry, especially in the commercial gym, they call them like GIs, gym instructors, or floor walkers, where you walk the floor. You might be a qualified PT, but you have to be able to approach people, to talk to them, to provide them a complimentary session, to then in turn try and flip them into a full-time client.
To make them interested in your service,
Or the sales rep might, you know, sell someone a membership, and part of getting sold their membership, they get three PT sessions and they might pass it on to, a lot of the time they pass it on to the new trainers who are not established, to then be able to build up their clientele, but they have profiles of all the trainers and they see who could fit who. So that's your opportunity as well. And if you're already starting to think like, oh, I can't afford that, or like, I don't know if I could do that, you're probably not suited to be running it yourself. You're probably better off either going into a setting where you just turn up, everything's done for you, and you just get paid for what you do, but you don't. So say, for example, like if I was to train you at a gym and you've been provided to me and all I've got to do is take you for a program, they might charge you out at $100, but I'm only getting 40 and the gym's getting 60. If that makes sense. But if you're confident enough to take it on the full, you know, I guess, man up and take it on, then you have the benefit of then, you know, taking the full amount of money. So like I was fortunate enough in terms of, you know, I was doing that and working, you know, ridiculous hours from 6 till, you know, put it this way, I would start my first client at 6 a.m. in the morning. I'd finish at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'll have a 20-minute break. And then I'll go from 4:20 to 8 o'clock at night, Monday to Thursday. And then Friday, I'll do 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then Saturday, Sunday, I'll take off and sleep. Because I worked in the CBD, a lot of my clients are only there Monday to Friday. So there's no point working
because they'll be at home in the weekend. Yeah.
So then you have to make up your hours throughout the week.
Yeah.
Right. So you pull about 70 hours in 5 days and you'll just be wrecked. But I was fortunate enough, then I moved my clients out of that place and then got a small little studio that someone had, and then I was just renting off him, training my clientele in there. And then Luke I was always in contact with Luke because he was still in Perth at that stage while I was in Melbourne, and he was coming back and forth for courses and all that sort of stuff. And then he like hit me up. He's like, mate, got an opportunity to come back to Perth. It's, you know, to open up some gyms and stuff and potentially over into Singapore. And then, I sort of was very hesitant because I'd got myself to a stage of being in Melbourne for about 3.5, 4 years. And I was at that position where I was charging what I wanted to charge, working the hours, wanted to work. And I was able to go on holidays I was going on a holiday, whether it was interstate or overseas, every 8 or 9 weeks throughout the year. Like whether it was just like shoot back to New Zealand for 4 days, fly out on a Friday morning, for example, get in Friday afternoon, fly back Monday morning, go straight into work because of the time difference as well.
Yeah.
Or shoot up to Bali or shoot to Sydney, see whānau, shoot to Brazil, for example. And I was sort of very, very hesitant. I was like, oh, I don't know. I'm like,
because you liked your lifestyle you were living. Yeah.
I like my lifestyle, and I sort of seen it as a challenge. And then my partner, she was like, what's the worst that could happen? We could go and come back. Do you know what I mean? Like,
and you'll be back where you are now. Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. And I didn't think, I was like, she's like, come on, let's just do it. And I was like, rightio. So we got here. And then, and that's sort of how I got into that area in terms of meeting other business partners and stuff like that. So a lot of it, I would say, probably wasn't difficult because it was sort of not forced onto me, but I was given an opportunity and I guess I took it with both hands. I honestly planned to be I planned to be in Perth for 2 years. I've been here 4.5 now.
I remember you saying crazy.
Yeah, I'd only planned because like I said, my partner does interior design and like a lot of her work's in Melbourne. So she goes back and forth or was going back and forth till COVID hit. But and then like we were on the verge of going back, and then then I went back to New Zealand, had that trip with the mountain and all that sort of stuff, and then came back, we decided to do it. And it sort of changed everything now. So in terms of answering your question on that, not so much. I mean, we've approached some people. Some people, it's like people we know as well. Like we've sort of, you know, they're just keen to jump on board and stuff. And I guess like from an operational perspective, like myself and Luke would be probably the main operators of the actual gym. And then they're sort of there in the background, whether they're looking after the accounts or, you know, like helping out with some other stuff as well. So I've been fortunate in that way. I haven't really had like, I guess, have to fully pitch something to someone and then, you know, get in bed with them in terms of business, if that makes sense. I've sort of had some background or knowledge of knowing them, whether it's me personally knowing them or knowing them through someone I actually trust as well. Yeah, a bit more mutual, but you have some trust as well. And I mean, in this industry, it's very, I believe, especially with gyms, you've got to have an owner-operator. Like I feel like it could work potentially not having an owner-operator, but I just feel like it's quite tough because if say I was managing this current gym and I had business owners sitting above me, it's very easy to sit behind a desk and look at like an Excel spreadsheet and be like, oh, okay, like we made $10,000 this month, but all our outgoings are $9,000. We're only left with $1,000 profit. Like, what's going on? Do you know what I mean? And people have to realize that when you get in that you've got to build a community and a vibe and a culture around it, and then all the other things start to balance
later
out
on, eh?
So later
That
on. And
ROI
again,
comes later, yeah.
correct. And then, but like I said, we were fortunate that we broke even 5 weeks or 6 weeks or 5 weeks in.
Yeah, that's fast.
And that's something I've never experienced before. And maybe it's because it was something different and it was in the news and all that sort of stuff as well. And maybe it's the vibe and whatever. But so going back to that, I've been fortunate enough just to sort of have business partners that I sort of already know, or know for a mutual friend that sort of has. So I haven't really had any issues, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it really.
Right.
That sort of stuff.
And when it comes down to like when you guys did get like employees and stuff, how did you guys discuss and land on like how much to pay people? Because that's a question I've had roll around in my head too. Like, and this is coming from another view of, like with this new opportunity that I've had come up. The bro asked me like, how much did I want to do this sort of filming sort of stuff for? I was like, bro, I don't know, whatever, because I don't know where to start. So yeah, how did you guys approach that?
Cool. So in the staff, so in terms of paying staff, most group training, I think they pay people around about $27, $31 an hour or a session. We pay 40 because we're more, I guess, well, the reason why we pay 40 is because we're a bit more technical. There's 3 of us, and yes, that probably makes our outgoings a little bit higher in terms of salary and wages for everyone for the month. But in return, the quality that we're getting from our staff, plus the amount of members coming in and signing up, like we haven't had a sales process since we've opened. So we haven't had a process where we sit people down and be like, these are your options. We've had a system where people finish their trial, they've already bought a membership online because they're worried they're not going to be able to book in the following week.
They don't want to miss out.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
They don't want to miss out. So it was crazy. Like as soon as we had that sort of discussion around, okay, like most PTs probably charge about $60 for half an hour, probably standard rate in Australia, upwards to about I know some trainers that earn 130 for half an hour, some earn, 120 for 45 minutes. So we sort of went with $40 because it's quite a high end, considering all they've got to do is basically they've got to be here and understand the system of how all sort of works and be on time and all that sort of stuff, do their job, but they don't have to write all the programming. I do all the programming for the whole gym, so all the work, exercise, everything like that. They basically turn up and just conduct their section of the room. So they stay down, say there's A block, B block, C block. I might be in B block. I stay there the whole time. That way you actually get to touch base with all 30 people, because it's very common in group training. Very common in group training that you would have one trainer and there's 30 people and they go all around the whole room, but they're not necessarily going to touch base with everyone, because it's very easy to sort of transition over to the people you're very comfortable talking to. So if I see you in class, I'll be like, and it's just me, I might come up to you and spend 10 minutes talking to you while you're training and stuff, because I'm comfortable with it, but I've neglected all 29 other people, if that makes sense. So the way our system works is you have to stay where you are in order to be able to be in contact with everyone throughout the class. And then that way everyone knows you as a trainer and as a personality. So going back to the pay, we sort of settled on $40, which is probably quite high considering it's probably, I think it's 35% higher than what most people get in the group setting. But in saying that, it's sort of paid its way in terms of the return we're getting from members, from the quality of training, from our sales going up and stuff as well. So it was sort of a discussion that me and Luke had. Like I was sort of thinking 30 and he said maybe 40, and that way we can, sort of basically gather interest, but also it gives us a leg to stand on in terms of hiring some quality trainers as well. So like I said earlier, I'd rather have them have really good people skills and be able to get along with people and stuff and have some form of being able to coach. But if you get both, it's amazing. Yeah. I mean, and if you're a trainer that comes in the morning and you're here for 3 sessions in the morning and you walk out with $120 for 3 hours worth of work, a lot of people they might make that in a day. I don't know what the minimum wages in New Zealand or, so, and then they've done 3 hours worth of work and they might go and do their own thing or whatever. But it was sort of just it came down to our service as well, that we wanted to be boutique-y and a little bit more higher end. Yeah. If that makes sense. Because it's about $85 max to train with us a week. Yeah. Which might be very expensive if it's in New Zealand, but like what you find in Australia, is that a lot of Australians, if they believe in the product, they'll make it work.
They'll go all in. Yep.
If they, if they want to, if they believe in, say training for $85 a week and they want to do it, they'll make sacrifices elsewhere to be able to do it. They're not really, some of them might say, oh, it's a bit too expensive for me. I won't do it. And we're like, that's fine, but we've never really had that sort of issue. And we do have other, you can train twice a week, you can train 3 times a week, or you can train unlimitedly. And a lot of our other businesses, there was only the one option to train unlimitedly.
Yeah.
And that's what you start to see with that, is that people burn out after 6 to 7 months.
Yeah.
And there's a higher turnover rate. Whereas we found that by a lot of people generally pick 3 times a week, which has been great for us, because then from a capacity point of view, we can have more people, because originally we were only meant to have 180 people max capacity, and we were at 100 members after 5 weeks.
Yeah.
So we only had 80 spots left.
Yeah.
And then we introduced 2 times a week and 3 times a week, and then that pushed that 180 out to about 250.
Yeah, because
so we're
swap those days around. Yeah.
We're probably sitting around post-COVID at the moment, 190 odd members at the moment. We normally operate around about 220 post-COVID. So we'll post-COVID, or before COVID, sorry, we're probably looking like we are going to have to stop memberships in terms of providing it to the public, because
capacity
we were going to be able to. And we had already added 4 morning classes on, and then 2 evening classes. So we're running 7 classes a day with 30 people per class. So like it's but so that, going back to that pay, was just our service, the quality of the staff and the trainers, and then obviously by providing that, you sort of get a higher return in terms of your membership and stuff as well.
Because anybody who gets paid above whatever the standard going rate is, you feel like you're valued. And if you feel like you're valued, you can do better work, or you're keen to turn up.
Yeah, and I'm in the process of making, because we're really big. It's really hard to find good people to work for you. It is really hard to do it. And I can say that firsthand. And when you find them, you want to be able to look after them. So I'm in the process now of making stages, for example. So say, for example, you've been here for a year and a half. You might have gone and upskilled yourself and did a few other short courses and stuff. We might move your pay from $40 to $48 an hour, and then you get taxed, and your superannuation on top of that, so it might come down to 44, for example. Give them stepping stones to jump higher and higher and higher. That makes sense, because again, you get the return back as well. It's also it can't be always take.
Yeah, it's give as well.
End of the day, it's give as well, man. And if you're going to operate I believe if you're going to operate a business like that, you're probably either not going to last long, or there's going to be a lot of shit talking about you behind your back and all that sort of stuff.
You know what blows my mind? Business owners who don't realize that their greatest asset are their employees.
They are. You're correct. You're totally right.
They're way more important than money and anything else.
Because they help keep the lights on.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. Exactly. I mean, there was one stage when me, Luke, and Oscar, our other business partner, when we first opened, it was just us 3 for about 6 weeks, and we were haggard, man.
Of course.
You're running all the classes, plus outside of the classes, then you're running the admin and the back end and
running the business.
Well, and you're just so you've got to have those people in place to be able to step in. And we've got this new girl that's just come over from Melbourne, and she was quite successful with some gyms over there and helped them get really big. And she is awesome. She's an absolute gun. She's almost like having our own, how we have our virtual assistant Eden. It's like having her, but with you on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
She's just so on the ball. She's just like, yep, done this. And we're just like, I'm just like, holy crap, what the hell? And again, it's really tough to come across people like that. You know what I mean? And when you get them, you want to look after them and value them. But then at the same time, you've also got to have in the back of the mind, you've got to be willing at some point, they may want to go and do their own thing, or they may want to leave, and you just have to live with that. And I think we've been very open from the start. We want to help people grow and get them into certain situations to then be able to move on. We've got a coach here, Mary, who does a lot of mindset stuff and manifesting, and she's basically a mindset coach, and that's something that we've brought into our studio because we believe that there's the big side of the things in terms of training, right? And doing all that stuff, but there's no one sort of looking after people on the other side of the mental side of the stuff as well up here,
which is probably more important.
yeah, and like, you know, she would go out and take people out for coffee and, you know, catch up with people and do all that sort of stuff. And she's become so busy with that, and it's something that she's always been passionate and wanted to do, that she's slowly stepping out of taking classes, and she's looking after her own business, which is something that we always thought would happen as well.
Yeah.
And we're happy for that to happen. She still wants to work with us a couple of times a week doing classes and stuff, but we understand that that's what she's passionate about and that's what she wants. And I guess we've helped each other out by bringing her on board into here to do that, to build up some clients. And then she's still helped us out by taking classes and stuff as well, that she's got her own thing going on. And I think it's like, as a business owner, you've got to be open and be like understanding that other people, it's going to happen as well. And
Right.
like,
Yes.
you know what I mean? Like, it's
I know
happen,
exactly what you mean.
You can't, if you look at it like, oh man, like stuff them, I've trained them up and they've walked away or they've gone off and done this. It's like, well, it's people are going to look after themselves at the end of the day. No different to us looking after. I would always put the business first as well. Like, and that's me being totally honest. Like, we'll do that if it has to come down to it. So you just got to be understanding in that sort of way.
Bro, I love that.
Well.
I love how, because, you know, you hear, you know, we've all heard stories of businesses who aren't supportive of their employees when they want to leave, you know, those sort of things. And, you know, not that they have to be supportive, but, you know, the fact that you guys do care about your employees and, you know, the next chapter in their life, you know, post S30 and all that. And that goes to show how much you guys care about relationships, you know?
Yeah, and it's helping them grow in some ways, right? Like, I mean, like, I've got to look back at it. I've had people help me get to the position I'm in now.
Yeah.
Right? It's almost giving back around, if that makes sense.
Yeah, paying it
people
forward.
Help me get here. Paying it forward, exactly right. And that's probably the biggest thing you can do as a human is like help people, you know. People are going to help you get to certain situations. You can also help other people get there as well, for sure.
Bro, that's exactly it. And it sort of aligns with, for me anyway, my own personal view on the saying self-made is there's no such thing, you know, like in the genuine sense of the saying, because everything that you know or every skill that you've acquired, in some way it's been helped by somebody else, you know, by multiple other people. So that's you know, that says a lot about what you guys are doing, you know. Oh, we've just frozen, Whānau.
Of course.
Oh, bro, you just frozen.
Yeah.
That's all right. I can edit it. I can chop it out. All right, there we go. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah, see. Yeah, man. Yeah, and like, I think it's like, it's important, you know, like people come and go, and I've had people leave before that I've worked on to help build them up, and it's just life. People are gonna, you know, like, you got to understand that if it was a similar situation, that I would probably have to do the same thing myself as well. To, you know, it's just the way it is, man. And, and once you can get past that, sort of similar to what we spoke about, having that high standard and just sort of letting it go a little bit, it's you start to move forward, because otherwise you hold that against you.
Yes, bro.
I feel like it can get you into a position, and I was like that when I first started in the other businesses, like, oh, I'm leaving because, you know, I can't get enough hours. I'm like, what do you mean you're leaving? Like, you know, rah, rah, rah. But it's just like, okay, you've got to take a breather, look at it from both sides of the fence as well, and then move forward like that. Otherwise, you just think about that you're right, I'm right, you're wrong, and it's not a good place to be in. Yeah, I believe.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, bro. I agree with you there. So moving on to the next thing, bro, like, you know, obviously the biggest thing to happen in a very long time, you know, COVID. How did you guys deal with that, bro? How was working through that, and, you know, having employees and things like that?
Cool, awesome question. We were quite fortunate enough, because one of our business partners is an anaesthetist. So being in the hospital and all that sort of stuff, we sort of could get an inside scoop of what was currently happening. But earlier, right? So a lot earlier. So we started planning and thinking like, okay, well, what are we going to do? Obviously, there's the online stuff, Zoom, etc. So we started working away and building that. And then we honestly thought we wouldn't close. I remember the day, it was March the 23rd, I think. So a few days after my birthday that we closed. Well, the following day, March the 24th, I think it might have been. No, actually, yeah, March the 23rd. It was a Monday. We had to be closed by 12 o'clock in the afternoon. So we worked the morning, then we closed 12 o'clock class, didn't do lunchtime. But we were fortunate enough that we had already built this online platform beforehand. But then we launched a few days later, just thinking like, shit, we're in a bit of trouble here. I don't know if this is really going to help.
Yeah.
This is really going to work. And in the space of like 2 days, we had 180 people signed up to it, which was pretty incredible. I was like,
hell yeah.
Another business here. Like, and what helped with that is it wasn't just Perth-based people. It was Sydney, Brisbane, all that sort of stuff. So then from a branding perspective, people started to even see us a little bit more as well. Because like we've run some cool events that I can touch base on later on. But we ran, and then we're like, man, this is making like, you know, a bit of cash for, like, technically we had built the system. I'd filmed 4 weeks worth of content in one day. And that meant, so I was in front of the camera, like explaining how the workout works. And I had, you know, a staff member with me, Mary, actually at the time, running through how it all sort of works, the exercises, providing a platform, setting up an app. And we had, lucky enough, like I said, we had already started doing this stuff prior to, just anticipating, right? But I think what really caught us off guard was not thinking that it would go so well straight off the gate.
Yeah.
And we're like, hold up, our business is shut. We're not getting any more income coming in from like our current members, but we're making, you know, a quarter of what we're making for actually not really doing much work. Like, you know, after that, like after 4 weeks, I'll film another 4 weeks worth of content again. So then, to be honest with you, COVID probably provided a lot of, there's always one thing my father used to say to me, there's always opportunity in like there's always opportunity in like a negative sort of position. If you're in a negative position, there's always an opportunity. That's not really quite the words, but that's what I'm trying to say. And so, because we did that, then we realized, man, we've got an online business here. Like, this is awesome. Like, it's going so well. It started branching out through some people in America as well, some people around Australia, New Zealand. And it was just like, holy hell, like, this is something that we could possibly do. And then I started thinking, man, from a business perspective, if we start opening up franchises, because the goal was to open up franchises around the world, it'd be awesome. Like, I'm not going to lie about that. And I was like, from the outset, like when we always get together at the start of the year, we're like, as individuals, as business partners, we all get together and say our goals and stuff. And one of them for me was that I don't want to be based in the gym full time, taking classes for the rest of, you know, my life. I guess I want to be able to sit.
You want to work on the business, not in it. Yeah.
But I still want to work in it from a perspective of taking classes, because I feel like it's very important to still be, everyone knows you as a business owner, but still be there to be able to touch base with people. You know, because like I said earlier, people are creatures of habit. They're so used to seeing, you know, imagine if they turned up to a filming session with you and they're like, oh, where's Ho? Ho's not here. Like, I don't know this guy. Like, well, why are they filming me today? Do you know what I mean? Like, so like, I still would love to do like, you know, 10, maybe 12 classes a week, which I was currently doing at the start of the year. But yeah, so we did that, and that went really well. And then the government brought out this stuff. I don't know if they've done it in New Zealand, but there's Job Seeker, which is basically for Australian citizens that the government, I think they give them $1,100 a fortnight, which is almost like from WINS or the dole back home.
Yeah, right. We got a similar thing. It was a subsidy.
Okay, cool. And then they've got Job Keeper, which is basically $1,500 a fortnight pre-tax that you give to your employees to give them to be able to keep their job, if that makes sense. So we would provide that to our staff members that were employed by us, because some were subcontracting in, and then basically they have, you know, I think it's 20 hours worth of work. They could still do work for you, or basically give them a chance to keep their job. So the way that sort of worked, though, as a company, you had to pay them first, and then you got the money repaid back to you from a later date. So that's where some companies got a bit unstuck with their cash flow, because I think from what I had read, they weren't prepared. You know, they weren't in a position to be able to give them, say, for example, 10 people, $1,500 every fortnight, and wait up until April until you got all your money back.
Some of them didn't have enough cash flow.
Didn't cash flow to do it. But then I seen, like, you know, I know a few guys that own a few businesses around by us, pubs and bars, and I was coming into the gym doing filming and stuff like that. I'm like, what is all your staff doing water blasting the pubs and the bars and stuff like that. And he's like, well, they're on job keep. I've got to give them something. Like, I'm paying them.
Give them something to do.
I'm going to give them something to do. They can clean, every 3 days or every 2 days, they can wipe down the pubs and clean everything. I was like, fair enough. That's, so we put our staff on that. And then it was also a chance to actually sit back and then start really working on the franchise stuff as well, because we've been so busy. And in that process, we've sold, like I said, pretty much sold one's pretty much done.
Yeah.
And hopefully should be opened by September, October-ish. That's the goal. And then another one's pretty much like confirmed done. I mean, and then it's just finding a site, like a leasing opportunity for them to lease out. And then there's a few people in talks as well. There's potentially some people overseas, but it's just, again, it's given us that opportunity to actually be like, oh, we're not in classes at the moment. We can sit back, work on this sort of stuff, tidy a few things up as well. Because like I said, things happen so quickly when we first opened that things that we thought would be at 30 people a year later, not 6 weeks after.
Not straight into it,
opening. So going back to your question, we call it what we were calling it here in Australia was the Great Pause. It was like, they were referring it back to like our current age's version of a world war, the whole war, like everything sort of stopped. Yeah. So we were fortunate enough to sort of get ourselves in I would say we're probably in a better position. Like someone said to me, you're closing your gym for 9 weeks, but after 9 weeks, you're going to have 2 gyms, 2 franchises sold and potentially a few others on the go.
And an online platform as well.
An online platform. I'll say close it right now.
Where do I sign?
Yeah, but again, I think that was just our attitude and our approach. Like, to be honest with you, when it happened, I was sitting here and I remember when I came and got my other moko done, I was like, man, I've sort of pretty much given up drinking. And I had a few drinks that day because I was just sort of like, man, what am I like?
What do you do?
What am I going to, but the first thing we thought of is what's going to happen? How do we support our staff? We've got great staff here. How are we going to support them without losing them as well? And then lucky enough, the government came out with all that sort of stuff as well, because I'm a Kiwi, Luke's a Kiwi, a couple of our other clients, staff members are Kiwis. We don't get, if we're not Australian citizens, you don't get the job seeker, which is sort of the version of the dole. So they hadn't bought anything out like that. And then some massive poll ran in Australia that 400,000 odd Kiwis weren't eligible for it. So there's 400,000 Kiwis without jobs, without work, without an income. So anyway, we got around and got it. And then, so going back to your question, bro, it was probably a blessing in disguise in some ways. Like we've managed to, like I said, one pretty much done, one franchise done, one pretty much done, just in talks, and we just need to find a space, and then a few others that people are interested in. I mean, nothing's done until there's cash in the bank and it's all signed and sealed. But from a perspective of having these opportunities to have conversations and look at that, plus have an online platform up and running and going, then and then going back to that online platform, and like I said earlier, it's something I don't want to be in the gym forever. It was more so looking at it from a perspective of that. If I was to move home or if I was to move elsewhere or whatever, and these franchises are set up around the world, that I have then, if I'm doing all the online stuff, I can pop up to one of the franchises that pays us, pays to be a franchise and film the content there, for example. So I could travel and still work. So I could go to Singapore, for example. There's one there, but hey guys, it's from head office. We just need to use the space from this time to film some content for all your online stuff. That way, it also means we can check in on the studio, see how they're going and stuff as well.
2 birds, 1 stone.
Have conversation, and then also it gives me the ability and the freedom to travel as well. But that was an opportunity. That was something that we were to do. So, it just opened up those sort of doors as well, because that's something that I do enjoy, like getting around and experiencing and traveling and stuff like that. And from it it was sort of a blessing in disguise, really. like I said, we're in a pretty strong position. When we came back online, we notified everyone about a week beforehand that we're going to be opening, because we were only capped at 20 people back then. We could only have 20 people in a class. And I thought, maybe we'll get a few people canceling that. We probably had about 10 people, I think. And that was based on the fact that they weren't working in the city. They were still working at home. So we've come back online and we're in a pretty good position in terms of we've been open for the last 7 weeks, and it's just it's been crazy, man. It's been good in some ways as well.
Bro. I think this is just my own perspective and my own, personal biases. But what COVID did is it forced people to, especially entrepreneurial people, it forced you to be creative about how you pivot and about identifying other opportunities, largely online, because the thing about online is you've got the whole world right there, and the whole world can access you and your product or service. And it was a matter of trying to figure out how to package your skill set into a way that was adding value to other people. And then you just put a price tag on it. And bro, I love that. The majority of what I saw anyway, just from who I follow and, who I'm friends with, everybody that I follow, they did it. They did that. They pivoted and they surfed the waves instead of getting drowned by the waves. And I feel sorry for people who may have not been at the capacity to surf those waves. But I do hope that they have, good support systems around them to help, pick themselves up to carry on.
Yeah. And I believe like a lot of that's the way you look at it, like, and that comes back to that mindset and that manifesting and all that sort of stuff of the way you approach it. You can sit there and throw your toys.
Yep. Or
you can sit there, grab your toys, have a think, and then say, like you said, pivot, a strong word. How are you going to move? How are you going to, go in a different direction, a different angle? And it forced us to go in a different angle and direction, and then it's brought us back to where we were currently on, that road we were currently on, plus it's brought some more itinerary with us, if that makes sense.
Yeah, bro.
Do you know what I mean? So like, it's like I said, like it was, I'm not gonna lie, I sat there like, shit, man, what are we gonna do? Like, we've got the online stuff that we've been working on, but I don't know how this is gonna work. And then I was like, had a few drinks, went home, slept, had a coffee, came back down. I was like, I've got to train just to clear my head.
Yep.
I've got to eat it. And then I trained, cleared my head. We got together the next day, and then we just went, bang, let's go downstairs, start that's filming, bang, we're away.
Shit.
And it was just like, and we started doing free Zoom classes on like a Thursday and a Saturday morning, and that was just open. We'll put our link on Instagram, and that will allow people. And then, we had 80, 90 people, Zoom in from all over the world, New Zealand friends, all this sort of stuff, Japan. Yep. And that's just brand awareness as well.
Yeah, bro.
It's
brand
free,
awareness.
it's off the back of our back.
Yeah.
But it's, people start to think, oh, okay, right. And it's just, it's been awesome. It's like I said, a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing that I like to think about, bro, is especially entrepreneurs, there's that part where you're born with that, natural tendency to want to do your own thing, which is very much you've told me. And then there's another part where you see examples out in the world of people who are out there forging their own tracks, in the uncharted territories, that sort of thing. So who are some of the people, bro, that you've been inspired by over the years in terms of business or in terms of entrepreneurial thinking? Who are some of those people for you?
I'd have to say my parents to start with. That was something that was like, I guess they probably installed, like I said, like my mum's she's pretty much worked for herself. My father's currently, still here, has been off and on for a while, but CEO of Kohanga in New Zealand.
Yeah.
So that's quite a big role as well. So I guess like being around that from quite a young age, and probably almost like given not the opportunity, but also just encouraged that like you can do things. Like from my parents, you can, if you put your mind to it, you can do stuff. And also just having the belief. And my parents were never ones to be like, oh, I'm thinking of, say for example, like one of my brothers just under me, we always played rugby, played sport, played all that stuff. But my youngest brother got right into like tennis and stuff that we weren't so much into, but my parents were full backing behind it. There was never like, no, you're not doing that. You've got to do this.
Yeah.
So I'd have to say them were really big in terms of pushing me that way, but also even from a supportive, supportive way as well. Like there were times when I first started out when I needed a little bit of capital to get going. Like when I first started as a PT, because you got to pay for all your stuff to get going. and they were just happy enough and willing to back me as their son, I guess, to do it, instead of having a perspective like, oh, I don't know, it might be not the right path. Do you think it's good to do this? Rah, rah, rah. Another one was my mum's father, so my grandfather. He was very big into like he had like orchards and horses and land and property and all that sort of stuff. So like as a kid living around them, sort of seeing that, and that's my Pākehā side, but a very hard worker. Grew up on the west coast of New Zealand, down south, and just sort of grinded his way through that sort of momentum as well, in terms of being able to just persevere. Because I guess back then, like my mum wasn't from, both my parents weren't from a wealthy family, but I guess having the drive and stuff, and that's probably influenced around the environment they grew up in, around sort of, you know, their parents. And my father grew up with his grandmother, so my great grandmother. He grew up on a marae and stuff, and she was very big on education, and as you know, Māori kids studying and doing all that sort of stuff. So like in a nutshell, really, my father went to university, and back then it was free to go to university. You didn't have to pay.
Yeah. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, you didn't have to. No, you didn't have to. He went to Vic in Wellington, and you didn't have to pay. But he, you know, he needed to live. So he grew up in Haunui, and so he would move to Wellington, study for free. But in the summer, he would jump on get some money somehow, fly to Darwin, and where some of his brothers, because my dad's one of 14 kids, he's got quite a big whānau, and so he would fly up there, and he'll work in the meatworks for 3 to 4 months, and then that money he earned after paying his rent and, you know, his food and stuff, he would come back to New Zealand, study for free, but that paid his whole year worth of rent, food, and everything else, and that's how he did it. But in hindsight now, he got a free education. He put himself in a stronger position in terms of living, was able to, I guess, provide to us as kids the best thing, you know, like as a kid, I grew up, I didn't think that we weren't not well off. That makes sense. Like, I'm not saying my parents are in a comfortable position now, but like, you know, you talk to them and it's like, you know, we had to go down to the bank and tip every coin out of everything that we could find just to be able to pay our rent when we first started off, you know, like things like that, which as a kid, I never seen.
And
I thought we were sailing.
Parents do a wonderful job of keeping that stuff from kids, because kids don't know that stuff.
And I thought, like, man, I had an awesome, I was like, but you know, one thing that I sort of admire, I guess, and this is coming back to my parents, is like, if I was like, hey, I want to, there's a school trip coming up, can I go? My parents were like, yep, sweet. Even though they might not have the money, they would somehow make it work.
Figure it out.
So that were big. And then one of my mum's brothers, I look up to quite a lot. I don't have like, I do have a strong relationship with him and being able to talk to, but he's quite a busy person. But he was like, how would I say it? Like, sort of like the black sheep of my mum's whānau in terms of like, he's the third oldest, I think, male. Very, very successful now. He's in the stock markets. He's built his own algorithms and all that sort of stuff.
Far out.
But at school, you know, drop out of school, surf, you know, quite a bad boy sort of thing. And then he actually at one stage was working under John Key as a like making his coffee and doing all this, running around for him, doing stuff. And I think John Key was involved in the stock and, like, you know, the market back then. And he used to just stay behind at night and just teach himself how to do it. Because obviously the market will come online at night in New Zealand to what's happening overseas. And he's just very good at networking and talking to people. And like, he's someone that I can call up and just be like, hey, rah, and he links me up with connections here and there and all this sort of stuff. And I look back at it, I'm just like, it shows as well that you also don't need an education to be able to pursue and get yourself far in life.
Plenty of examples of that.
A lot of those sort of people, mate, are probably people that I've actually had quite a close relationship and upbringing with. And I mean, there's some people I've met along the way in terms of clients and stuff like that, that I pick their brains and have a chat to and stuff. But I guess I haven't really had a strong enough relationship or connection with them to actually like fully sit down and see how they operate on a day-to-day basis. It's always in a professional manner. Whereas like my parents and like my family and my grandfather and my uncle and stuff, I've had the opportunity to be able to ask them questions. And I guess because they are your family, you're in a bit more of a comfortable position as well. There's one bloke that helped me and Luke out when we first got into those first businesses. His name's Aaron Kidd. Really, really smart guy. He's almost like you're talking to him and you're just like sort of puzzled and lost for words, and like he's like, and I've never seen someone like be like type type, bam, 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 done. Like, he's just unreal. I think he won an award here in Perth called I think it's called the Valen Victorian. Don't quote me on that, but basically it's essentially one of the smartest kids in Australia. But he went to a school in quite a rough area.
Yeah.
And when he like got all those exam awards and he got this thing, they actually re-interviewed him for it because they didn't believe that this kid from this low sort of area could be that smart enough to be able to do that, achieve that. And I was like, really? And it's like, yeah, I think it's called the Valen Victoria. I can't remember the actual name, but anyway. And so I learned a lot of him around how to operate, and Luke's learned a lot of him because he'd been mentored by Luke, and Luke's helped me out as well. Luke's been also another person to learn a lot of stuff off as well, like very good at like I said, ideas and all that sort of stuff as well. So I've probably been fortunate enough where I've been around that sort of people. I've had a few mentors in terms of the training side of things. When I first got into it, there's this lady called Faye when I was based in Melbourne, and she helped me a lot around more so the coaching side of things in terms of mentoring around that side of stuff, which was awesome as well. Especially being in like a commercial gym. But yeah, a lot of it comes back to firstly, probably my parents, and just when I look back at it and see how hard they worked and where like they come from now to be in a position where they're very comfortable. And put it this way, I could get myself into some trouble and maybe I could lose a lot of money. I could probably call my parents up and they'll be able to just provide me some cash just to get me by or something like that, for example. But like, and they probably would be fine to do it now, but like back then they probably wouldn't be fine to do it, but they'll still do it. Does that make sense?
As mum and dad.
I guess it's different. Yeah, it's probably different like that in that way, but like, yeah, probably just seeing that and seeing how hard they work and stuff like that, that's probably been my biggest influence around that sort of stuff, because it's sort of, or not all they've known, but they've always just been in that sort of line of work to be able to provide that sort of stuff for us as kids as well. So yeah, that answers your question in some way, but
very much. And that's I think that's a good relatable thing to talk about. You know, everybody in their own individual lives, you know, has somebody in their family or in their friend group, or, you know, somebody in that sort of parental role that they look up to for reasons similar to that, you know, for the way that they've hustled, for the way that they've just taken life on the chin, and they just get up and carry on, no matter how many times they get knocked down. You know, examples of resilience and persistence and, you know, things like that. So sorry, carry on.
Keep going, sorry. Keep going.
So for this, like, because you're my first guest on this, so thank you, brother.
Okay.
It's a privilege for me to have you on here, because I remember that time when you came over here and saying like, man, I wish we had a mic hooked up this whole session. It was just you were definitely blowing my mind, because business is not a thing that has come natural to me. So I've really had to try to do well at business. Not that I'm doing well at business, but I'm definitely not doing well. I'd say for me, it really the biggest part of it that has helped me do well has really just been my natural creative talent. So and that's the whole reason was for this segment, you know, for Know Your Numbers. It's called Know Your Numbers, but really it's just about business and people in business, things to do with business, because I understand that a lot of my listeners are, you know, some of them are creative people, and a lot of the creative people that I know and that I've spoken to aren't naturally inclined to business things. So this is really dedicated to them. I know I'm going to be learning from this, but I hope that through learning all of this business stuff, because this is a necessary part of making a living from your art, which is what this whole podcast is built around. You know, it's around whatever creative realm you live in. It's about trying to make a living from that. And, you know, only way to make a living from it, I see in my mind, is about how to monetize what you do, and monetizing things efficiently in this day and age. You know, it helps if you know business, you know, those sort of things. And moving on from there, bro, what are three things that you've learned on your journey through business that have really had a huge impact on getting you to where you are now?
Really, that's a good question, actually. It's a very good question. I'd say people, like, and I mean that in all sorts of assets and forms, like the people around you as well, like your environment, and like having a strong support system, whether it's your partner, your parents, your friends, having people in terms of your staff, finding good people in that element as well.
Yeah.
You know, people that can help out, are willing to help out, but in saying that you've got to, you know, you've got to pay it forward, and it can't be give, it can't be take. It's got to be give, give, you know, give and take. Sorry, should I say? Yeah, I would arguably say that's probably the biggest thing, because I'm not gonna lie, man. There's been days where like I'm like, man, like, what am I doing? Like, you know, like there are days where you doubt yourself. I have doubted myself.
Oh,
before.
for sure.
Like, what am I up to? Like, what am I doing? I like I said to you earlier, I'm not strong around the back end of numbers and stuff like that, but I try and learn, and I try and put myself in positions around people that can help me with that as well. And that, again, it comes back to that environment. And, you know, there's that classic saying, everyone says it, like, you know, the 5 people you surround yourself with, the 5 people you're likely to be like. And, you know, if you're surrounding yourself with people that don't sort of have motivation or have things to do with it, it's very easy to pick up their habits and stuff as well.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, it's that classic saying of, if you're not the smartest person in the room, it's quite a good position to be in, because you could just you're like a sponge, man. You could just absorb everything as well. So
yeah, for sure.
I mean, and then you got to think that you've got to think that those people that are smarter than you in that room are probably learning that they've learned that from someone else and someone else. So it's like a pass on chain. So people's probably a big one, man, for sure. Discipline, I think, and a form of all elements, because, like, you know, you could be determined, you can have desire, you can have dedication, but without discipline, you don't have any of those. That makes sense. And that can apply to a lot of things, of, like, you know, the discipline to be able to get up 4 a.m., you know, Monday to Sunday, to be able to go to work, open the gym. You're relying on 30 people, you know, 30 people are relying on you to be there, plus, you know, your staff conducting the gym. Discipline in terms of, you know, that applies to anything. You're training, if you're, you know, right into your eating. If you're saying you're not going to drink anymore, like, that transitions into just not even business, but so much other things in life as well. Like, I feel like with discipline, it gives me quite a good balance as a whole around everyone as well. Like, as in the way I conduct my business, the way I conduct training, the way I conduct relationships with people, the way I conduct a lot of things. Like, it comes back down to that. Like, if you're going to put your mind to something and have the discipline to do it, you're probably going to keep stepping forward as well in that right direction. And that probably transitions into the last thing. Like, this is something I probably spoke to you about when you doing my last mock call, was that sort of that mindset and manifesting and sort of visualizing, and like, that's probably over the last 6 to 7 months really opened up my mind to believe that, like, everything's there in front of you. You've just got to open up your eyes and grab it. Do you know what I mean? Like, and
recognize it.
So like my partner, she got right into it, and she was coached by Mary, actually. And like, she starts her day at 3:45, 3-ish in the morning. She gets up, she meditates, and then she basically, you know, she puts out to the world what she wants to receive for the day, for example. So she might be like, I'm ready to receive, you know, this and that, and she keeps just saying it, and then she'll dance, and she's got a little morning routine, basically. And, you know, by 4 a.m. comes around, she's getting me out of bed, and she's jumping up and down, like, man, let's go. And I'm like, where's this coming from? Because she used to be like, you know, like, I'll be like, come on, we've got to, you know, you got to get, because she trains every morning at 5 a.m. with us. So she comes, we'll drive it together, she'll train, and then she'll leave and go back and do all this stuff, because she works for herself from home. But like, she's just like driving down there, she's got the music, she's chatting away, right? When it first started, I'm like, man, what are you talking about? Like, yeah, I've got this music. Wow. So that's like taught me a lot. And it's also taught me a lot about even just reading people, and like how to let go even of my ego as well. Like, say for example, you know, say for example, we're having a meeting as business partners, and business partners might be like, oh man, like, the training's been great because I do all the programming and a bunch of other stuff, but man, like, I think it could be good if we do this. And automatically, maybe the old me would be like, why? Like, well, hold on, man, like, stick to your own lane. Like, this is how we set this up. You can control this, you control this. And all it is suggesting, and I still have the final say with that sort of stuff if I'm in that area of work. All that is suggesting is, but like the old version of me would be like, well, what do you mean? Like, no. And that's just that's my ego.
Yeah.
Essentially, that's me. Like, you know, whereas instead of just taking a step back, listening and being like, oh yeah, okay, like you could work for that. So that's really changed my outlook on, especially over the last 6 to 7 months. And it probably helped then even going into COVID as well.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Seeing the positive side of things. Otherwise, I could probably see a negative side of things and sort of
easily.
Be like, oh man, got to shut the gym because, you know, people are sick, rah, and you could just like down. So it's like
spiral down.
You know? And like you can, you know, I have conversations now with some people, and like yourself, man, I can see where your conversation's coming from. It's a meaningful part of that, you know, you doing all this sort of podcast for stuff, etc. It's sort of like you're coming from a place of wanting to learn instead of just coming from a place of just wanting to do the podcast because podcasting's become so popular.
Yeah.
You're coming from a different place where you know, I can start to see that now. Like you can see people, and I don't know if that's just from what my partner's taught me in terms of that sort of stuff, but you can I wouldn't say I'm reading people, but I'm just saying like, I feel like that's really helped me a lot, even just with a lot of self-development as well. Like, man, maybe I was a bit too, you know, driven by my ego instead of like, you know, walking around thinking that, yeah, we do this and that. And I've opened up that gym. Yeah, that's my gym, rah. You know, like it's just been so going back to, discipline,
people,
manifesting people, man. Like, and I feel like that sort of those three personally come at this stage of my life are like the main things that have really helped me along the way over the last year and a half, especially with this new business.
Of course, brother. And going back to discipline, how this is a big area that I've struggled with myself, and I'm sure a lot of other people have struggled with, you know, discipline. Bro, how do you, on your own personal journey, what would be your tips or advice on how to develop and cultivate discipline?
Cool. I would say, put it this way. Okay, so say that it was your first session at the gym, right? This is a saying that I always say to people, and they do first session, like in any new environment or anything, it could be quite daunting. It could be quite scary. I mean, or it could, you know, you could be afraid that you're going to be sore and stuff. And one thing I sort of say, and it's not really saying discipline, it's like, hey man, like, hey ho, like awesome session, man. Like, you know, how you feeling? Yeah, I'm sore. I'm like, mate, if you just keep walking through the door and you stay disciplined towards doing something like that, you're going to get better and better. By the time 2 weeks down the track, you won't even notice. You won't be as sore. And when you do pull up sore, it's a good thing because you're probably getting fitter and stronger, that you're able to lift a little bit more heavy weight, or you're able to push yourself a little bit more, that you're able to then keep coming back and back and back. So sort of just like applying yourself to something. Say for example, like, oh, okay, I want to have all my meals made, you know, all set up and done. And so just having the discipline to either make it or pay someone to potentially do it, but then having the discipline to eat it at the right time and do all that sort of stuff is probably more so of how driven you are as a person as well, if that makes sense. Because like the driven part comes along, but like the discipline is what keeps you on track to keep. So put it this way, I just did 30 days of so my biggest downfall is that I could go without eating McDonald's, KFC, hot chips, savories, pies, but I love to eat chocolate and lollies, just like number one, you know, like at night. I'm not gonna lie, I could come home and have like half a block of chocolate, for example, or like a few lollies or something like that. And so I was like, see, all of July, not doing it. Cool. I was like, oh, all of June, sorry, not doing it. So I did it, and then on July the 1st, I got like a donut and I had a little bit of chocolate, and I felt like shit in some ways. Like I actually felt like the next day I was like, oh man, I don't feel that great. And it taught me that maybe that was just all in my head, that I just thought that you know, and it's just having the discipline to just keep pushing it out. So I'm just going to keep carrying on with it as well. If that answers your question.
So would you say, in order to cultivate and develop discipline, it's just figuring out, what would you say? Oh, it's just tuning up. Yep.
Walking through the door. So like, even that old saying of like, say for example, like in footy, you'd be like, cool, I've got to do 1,000-meter sprints. Don't worry about the 10, just worry about the next number in front of you. So you do one. You're like, okay, cool. Let's go do one more. Do one more. Okay, I just got to do another one. Do one more. Before you know it, you just keep saying that, and then the coach is like, yep, done. You're done your 10. You're like, oh, I'm done. I could have done another one if I actually thought about it and put my mind and put my mind to it. But then I think it then also comes back to those other D's I mentioned: desire, determination, and dedication. You need those three, but discipline's what keeps those three going, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it feeds into those other things.
It ties them together.
Yeah.
To be able to keep you going on the right path in the right direction. Yeah. And hunger and like wanting to, like with these gyms, like wanting to prove. I guess that's maybe an ego thing as well. But like when people are like, man, you can't train in the dark. No one's going to want to train in the dark. Like, I'll flip the camera around and show you what it sort of looks like in here after this. But like, that's probably something that like, I would say bringing all those things together, tying that together is probably what will help keep you on the right track in terms of it as well. So.
Yeah. Awesome, brother. All right. I think that was the majority of the things I wanted to talk to you about, but since you offered, why not let's end this podcast on a little tour and talk us through, bro. Talk us through the whole experience through the gym and stuff too. So people who are watching, maybe some people who are listening to this live in Perth.
Yeah, they might too. I'll show you here. So I don't know if you can see here. See that there?
Yep.
That's a curtain.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Generally, there's people waiting in this little foyer bit, and there will be one trainer that would come up here, pull the curtain up, for example. Welcome everyone in.
Yes.
You can sort of see that it's a saying. I think it's
lights off, sweat on.
Lights. Yeah.
Nice. Was that you or was that the branding team?
And then there's like a
hang on. You're cutting out.
If you can see some of it. Oh, hold on. Give me
I think probably.
Yeah.
I think probably just moving away from
I'll start again.
Wi-Fi or something.
The dongle. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, bro. Smooth as.
All right, let's start again. We'll start again. So, yeah, normally there's a curtain up here, mate. And then the curtain gets pulled up. We welcome everyone in, like I was mentioning earlier. And then you've got this is just a foyer area where people can sit and wait. There's the main door there. And then that's one of the main streets here in Perth, because we're pretty central in the city here. And then there's this, this opportunity up here. People take photos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then, post the wall, all that sort of stuff. Squat too hard, rah. And then there's a sign there in the background, which actually has, it's not turned on at the moment, but it's arrows. Behind it. Yeah, it's actually got a neon that we sort of made. So we fitted this out ourselves. With one of my good friends we did this all ourselves with one of my friends who's a builder, which is quite fun. We sort of enjoy it because it sort of gets us together as business partners, and we spend about 2 months in here every single day doing it. And that saves weight, tempo, time, which is our slang. Because how it sort of works in the first section, it's all about weights and lifting on a compound movement. The second section of the room is all about tempo, so time under tension, controlling the movement. And then the last one's all time, so it's all time-based, max reps for 45 seconds, 15-second rest. And then you sort of make your way down the stairs. So normally that's got a neon light turned on, which isn't turned on at the moment. And then, we've got a bunch of other things. Oh, you might not be able to see it.
Oh, I can see it.
Sort of, I think that one says, I just flipped the switch. I don't know nobody else doing this. You sort of make your way into this. You can sort of see how dark it is now.
Yeah.
If that makes sense with the lighting. So you sort of come down to the gym.
Definitely got the nightclub vibes.
Yeah. And then there's, what's this one say? I think it says leg days was the worst days. And then this is this section here. So this is A block. I'll turn on the dimmers. Give me 2 seconds.
Was that a reference to Biggie that leg days was the worst days?
Yeah.
That was ship because we Thursday.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it, bro. Yeah. So that's stuff that we use. And then this section here, so it's got sort of like our cages. This is where we do all our big lifts. So classes are already set up for Monday. And then, Sweatcella, that's a big thing that we do as a challenge at the end of the year, where we send the winners to Coachella that win that event.
What a huge.
Yeah, they go to. Yeah, so then we've got sort of like these light boxes represent what you'll be doing in this block. So it's like bench press, for example, banded face pulls. And then as you make your way down, you've got B block here. That's where I was just sitting before with the lighting and stuff. Our clothing rack, bit of a mess there at the moment. Our DJ decks where our DJs play, because all our music's custom made and curated to the class as well.
Oh yeah, like you're talking about before, the tempos and BPMs and all those things.
BPMs and all that sort of stuff. So like on a hybrid day or a drip day, you know, you start off and it's like, upbeat. And as the session goes further on, because it's 36 minutes worth of work, you start getting tighter, but the music picks up and the music gets you going. Because we call the music the heartbeat of the gym. Basically.
Yeah, for sure.
We're very, it gets people going. And then you've got B block here, which I said earlier is all like tempo based stuff. And then you move into C block, which is basically, like I mentioned earlier, all our time-based stuff, 10 exercises, 45 on, 15 off, and that's a lot of the machine stuff. So as you can see, like a lot of group training doesn't use that sort of stuff with machine work as well. Bathroom down in the far corner there. I mean, the lighting's on at the moment, the dimmers, but like, I'll give you an example of how
this it looks cool in there.
Change. So it's sort of like so you see the lighting now. It's red
yeah.
There. You can go to blue, purple. You can do all sorts of stuff.
Yes,
sort of
bro.
Flash it, auto, change it. Yeah, whatever you sort of like.
Yeah.
As you can tell, that's why we run parties down here as well. And then I've got our little scent down here, which is sort of just switch on. It can actually be set up to like basically turn on automatically. So like we can set it up to turn on at like 5 a.m. every morning.
So when you turn up, it's already
going.
Yeah.
You can smell it a good 10, 15 meters down the street, up the stairs, down the street. And that's just the desk where we were talking, flagship 001. We actually built this, a good friend of mine built this concrete desk from the ground up.
Check it out, fun.
Originally. But man, that's pretty much us for our first studio.
Awesome, brother. Thank you for that tour.
Easy. But yeah, so.
Yeah, no, amazing, brother. I think that's pretty much it. Let all the people know, brother, where they can find you. Also, I know the t-shirt you're wearing too. Is that
one of the bros. Geordie. So yeah, I've known Geordie for a long time, being Wellington-based boys, and growing up in the same area, went to the same school as my brother, and he's about a year younger than me, but we sort of associated through playing a lot of sport together, and still keep in contact and stuff as well. So just always here to help support people and help people out, and it's not tough getting into business, and it's like I seen something Isaac John put up the other day, like someone saying, $1,000 for a course, and I think his response was, if you're going to spend $1,000 on, if you're not willing to spend $1,000 on a course, then don't get into business, because it's a lot more expensive, which is totally true. I mean,
and it's a lot more painful than spending $1,000.
Oh, mate, to fit this place out, it's a couple $100,000, and then you've got to pay your rent and stuff like that. And we're fortunate enough that because we're in a basement, no one wants it and it suits us, we're able to pay a lot cheaper rent. But, just how it is. But this is the Bros brand. It's actually quite a nice t-shirt. It fits quite well.
Yeah, bro, it looks good.
Media. But just, helping out all the brothers back home, and especially through Wellington or wherever they are based, and just giving them support. Yeah. For the love as well. So, yeah. But,
yeah, bro. Yeah. So where can everybody listening find you?
Sorry. Yeah, so you can find me. We'll find us S30 Studio or S30.studio on Instagram. Or that's probably the best place to find us. Find myself, Ret_Hartley on Instagram as well. But if you want to find out more information about us, you never know, we might be in a city soon, closest.
Yep. Stay tuned, Fano. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Definitely New Zealand's on the cards for us. I know myself and Luke, that's something that we definitely want to do. It gives us an opportunity to be drawn back home as well. But if all goes to plan and we can travel back home for Christmas, that's the plan. Come home, start looking for some space, and
cool, brother.
Get going from there.
Cool, bro. And any final words, bro, before we wrap up?
Nah, man, just thanks for having me. It's awesome to catch up and have a chat. It feels like every time we get together. It's
Yeah,
like
for
I was
sure.
talking to Alex a while ago when I was getting my moko last done when I came back home start of the year.
Yeah.
And she's like, how was it? I was like, I didn't even really notice it. We're just talking away most of the time.
It
And it's
went
just like, yep,
fast,
done.
eh, bro?
Oh, bro, I was like, and like you said, we should have just like set up a camera and just
Yeah.
filmed us talking and moving for the day. And I mean, next time when we do that, you know, that if I come back and get some more work done,
Oh,
which
for
is something I
sure,
want to
bro.
look at doing, we should definitely tee something like that up. And I'll
Yeah.
try and bring Alex back this time as well, because
Yeah.
I think you guys will get on like a house on fire as well. But nah, just bro, thanks for having me. It's like I said, I was when you hit me up, I was more than willing to jump on here and have a chat and just sort of let you know my sort of experiences and what I've sort of gone through. And it's sort of been a roundabout way. And like I said, I've been fortunate enough to sort of meet the right people and bump into things, and I guess just take the opportunity. But yeah, bro, thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh, bro. Thank you. Like I say, bro, I'm super grateful for not only you giving your time for this session, but just grateful for your friendship and just for the conversations, bro. I've learned a lot from you in the short time that I've known you. I feel like I've known you for ages, you know.
Yeah.
You know, it's always encouraging and inspiring meeting brothers who are out there attacking life, you know what I mean? And out there not only doing it for themselves, but doing it for their families and, you know, supporting people who support them along the way and paying it forward like we were talking about before. So yeah, I'm grateful for you, brother, and everybody listening. I hope you fellas enjoyed the episode. This is Know Your Numbers, episode 2, guest 1, Retimana Hartley from Wellington, living in Perth with S30 Studios. So my name is Haunui Tuna. I'm your host. This is Creative Curiosity. Thank you for joining us. Mauri ora.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate it.
Awesome, brother.